Everybody, how is everybody doing? Let me just do one more thing. Here we go. Here we go. Oh, that's not cool. Ooh, all right, professional show. All right, welcome everybody to the Thursday Night Hack Show. Hope everyone is doing well. Tonight I have a guest. This gentleman was brought to my attention by one of my subscribers and everybody's friend, Jack the Rabbit, and said, "Hey, why don't you get Vince on?" So I checked Vince out. Vince has got a fantastic channel. Vince is an incredible guitar player, and he's been playing and teaching for 25 years, I think he said. So yeah, he is the real deal. He is a professional musician, and I always think it's cool to have that perspective, somebody who's done it as a profession. So that's kind of for us weekend warrior types, that's always something new and interesting. So without further ado, I would like to bring on Vince. Hey buddy, how are you, man?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. We got every show always has some technical baloney, and of course that one I forgot to kill this. So we got an ad, but it's okay. It's all right.
That's cool.
No worries. All right, I'm going to go through. We got 15 people in here at the moment. I just want to say a quick hello before we get going.
Absolutely.
And speaking of Jack the Rabbit, there he is. Music Therapy Laz is with us as well. Awesome. Headstock Harem, nice to see you. Janice is with us. Mitch Heyman, how you doing? Just going down here. DT is with us. Six String Brian, welcome. Daniel Horsley, Half Ace, Merrill J, Mr. Guru, Fender Guru is in the house. How are you? Lars Guitars is with us. Okay, cool. And I think I caught everyone. As we go on, Brian S., welcome. As Sandra Picorni, welcome. As I go through, if you've got questions for Vince, just tag me at Guitar Hack so that I can see the question right away. Okay. All right, Vince. So how I normally start these things is I go chronologically. So, I mean, what was the event, or what was the event, or the band, or the visual that sort of got you interested in music and guitar in the first place?
Well, I was told, and there's a picture of it, that when I was 2 years old,
Wow.
they have a picture of me standing on this brown suitcase. And I remember this. I remember the suitcase, and I remember the living room. And it's so weird because that's like asking a 2-year-old, like, do you remember stuff from when you're 2? But I remember this for some crazy reason. And there's a picture of me on the suitcase playing this yellow plastic guitar. I think even the wrong way, lefty.
Right.
And it was the Tommy James and the Shondells, Moni Moni.
Oh, okay.
That tune would just get me all amped up and excited to play. To just, I was just noodling around on this toy guitar. It didn't matter. I was just slamming on it and making noise, but it was just something that really struck, and that was that tune. And after that, I would say shortly after that, Van Halen and Ozzy. I remember I would walk to school, and there was this girl that would walk home occasionally with me. I can't even remember her name, but I remember she had like the old school boombox radios.
Right, yeah.
And we were walking, and Eruption came on the radio. And we both like stopped, and she was just holding the radio like, wow. And that was it. I was like, all right.
So what is this, like 1980, 81?
That would be 78.
So, okay. So when it first came out. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, actually, no. Later on, I definitely heard that later on. Sorry. But in 78, I heard that also on my own and still was blown away. What was disappointing was Ozzy came later.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually have another very distinct memory of being in a local music store here in New Jersey. And this kid was playing a riff. And I was like, wow, did you write that? He's like, no, man, that's Crazy Train by Ozzy Osbourne. I didn't know, I was a kid. So he's like, it's really great. And Ozzy and Randy, and he was telling me about Randy Rhoads.
Right.
So I was all excited. I'm like, well, can you show that to me? He's like, oh, I don't teach. He goes, but here's my guitar teacher's phone number. And he wrote it down. And I said, write down the name of the album. So he wrote down the name of the album. And I go back out because, of course, my mom drove me to the store back then. I wasn't able to drive at that age. So, I'm like, Mom, we got to go to Sam Goody and buy this record. And you got to call this guy when I get home because I want to learn this song on the album. And that was really the touchdown.
So you had no guitar at home at that. So you literally, when you started with the guitar and lessons right away.
Right away, yes. Yeah, my dad was very much structured when it came to that. He taught hairdressing. He was a hairstylist, and he was also a mechanical engineer. So he was very structured and said, if you're going to learn, you're going to learn the right way, and he actually played accordion. So even younger memories of music in my house was dad playing accordion. I just loved hearing music, and I was very fortunate to have both parents that liked different styles of music.
I'm laughing because my dad had one too.
Oh, that's great.
So how old are you then when you start taking your lessons? And how was that teacher? Was that a good experience for you?
The first teacher I had was one of my father's friends, and he is a very accomplished jazz musician. And I think he's still playing now. He's in his 80s. And
Holy shit.
I recently ran into him within the last 4 years. Got to see him play again, and he almost fell over when he saw me because the last time he saw me, I was the same size as my guitar, which was this little. I still have it. You want to see it?
Sure.
I pulled it out for this because I figured, maybe I'll just show you this thing. It's a global guitar.
Okay.
And
nylon string?
No, it's a steel string, but it's a 3/4 size. And you could tell I keep my stuff in good shape because this thing's probably 40-something years old.
Yeah, it looks pretty new, man.
But I have it tuned down to I don't even know. I don't even know what it's tuned to. It's so low because it's I'm afraid the neck will snap. It's like baritone. So, but this was my first guitar. I brought this to Vic, and he was like, all right. And he was very patient with me. But he was super, accomplished. So here I am learning E, F, and G. And, I'm sure he was pulling his hair out. But he got me going and started me off the right way with sight reading, learning intervals and basic scales and triads. Because even jazz, that's the way it was. Those guys learned the real deal. So fortunately for me, that stuck. And then every time I got a guitar teacher, let me just put this down, I really wanted to learn more. It wasn't like I was going to learn songs. I wanted to learn theory. Then finding out that Randy Rhoads was an accomplished theory-based guitar player.
He was a guitar teacher himself.
Yeah. So that really stuck with me. You got to learn the right way. So.
No, that's cool, man. It's I mean, that I ask, did you get the guitar and then you started lessons right away, which you did, which is the right way to do it, and then you got guys like me who had a guitar forever and didn't have the support at all, never, And then when I'm in my after I've been playing 10 years and playing bars, maybe I should go and take a couple lessons and learn something.
Right.
But it's all it's just a mishmash at that point, right? So I mean, you started properly, like your dad, like you were saying, your dad, from the ground up.
Yeah.
Right. So that's awesome. So how long were you with this first guy who was showing you, this jazz guy, before you moved on to the next? And when did the guitars start to
accumulate?
Yeah.
Well, what happened was, I should probably rewind because the Tommy James thing was a lot younger, and so was that last guitar. So that was with Vic. And
Right.
then later on,
So I asked you earlier, but how old were you when you actually started with the lessons on the guitar?
I think my mom said I was 6 or 8 years old.
Holy, oh wow,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah, and so that was awesome that they got me interested.
Yeah,
And I know that they fought me to practice because I just wanted to play, like every kid that gets a guitar, you just want to play. And I'm learning these single notes and these triads that felt impossible to play at the time. But I stuck with it, and then for about a year, maybe a year or two. And then I remember I just didn't want to do lessons anymore. I stopped because it was too hard and I wasn't learning anything cool. And,
mhm,
I heard in my house, my mom would play stuff like Allman Brothers and just guitar oriented music. She
right.
just loved classic rock.
Mhm,
So I was hearing a lot of that stuff in the 70s, Jimi Hendrix. And that was another guy who I was just like, how does he do that? But I had the global guitar. I didn't know really about electric guitar.
right.
And of course, Vic was playing a jazz box that really didn't plug in either. So I didn't see like a Les Paul in the corner. And it's not like now you just jump on YouTube and you see everything. If you
Yeah,
were watching TV or brought to a concert, you never saw this stuff.
no.
So I didn't know anything about it until later on, and I started hearing Van Halen. I had some friends that lived nearby that were like, dude, you got to listen to this. So they were like almost like older brothers to me in a way.
Mhm.
They would bring over their Rush albums, and my mom would come in and go, that girl has a terrible voice. And I was like, oh my God, no, it's a guy.
Kidding,
He's
man.
awesome.
Kidding.
But that was always like the joke with Getty. But anyhow, great band, and that was another influence. But I'd say after I quit for probably about 2 years, I took it up again in school, in grammar school. They had a class, guitar. So I took the
Wow,
guitar class.
that's cool.
And after 2 classes, now mind you, it was a 45-minute class, and there was probably 20 or 30 kids in the class.
Mm.
And by the time the teacher came around and tuned everybody's guitar, we had 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So like the first class, I was like, all right, well, this won't happen next time. Next time comes around, the same thing. 40 minutes of tuning and, 5-10 minutes of guitar playing.
Right.
So I went home and I said to my dad, I want to go back to Vic because I'm better than everybody in the class. And we didn't do anything. All he does is tune the guitars and then we're done.
Right.
So he's like, all right. So we called up Vic. I went back and he gave me some more lessons. And then I found, that's when I went to Sam Ash and met that kid playing Crazy Train.
Mm.
And then that's when I got my first electric guitar.
Which was?
Every kid wanted a Les Paul guitar.
That is the correct guitar, yes.
And Randy Rhoads had a Les Paul.
Yeah.
And we weren't wealthy by any means, but my parents were able to swing something just as nice at the time. And my uncle, well, I'm Italian, so everybody that's closely related is an uncle. He's probably like my godmother's uncle, but anyway, doesn't matter. He had a music store in Livingston, and it was like almost more like a warehouse, but with a foyer. So he really had stock, but no real floor space. So anyway, we went down there, and I wanted a Les Paul, and he said, "Yeah, come down. I got something for you. It's not a Les Paul, but you'll love it."
Mm-hmm.
And here it is. Looks like a Les Paul.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
This is the guitar. It's a Cort.
Wow.
And look at this thing. It's a neck through and everything. And it's actually weighty. It's very heavy. I think they got sued over this.
Probably. they were right in line after Ibanez.
Yeah.
Getting sued. Yeah.
So this is my first electric that my parents got for me from
Very cool.
Uncle Frank. Yeah. Turns out Uncle Frank actually managed Twisted Sister for a while.
There you go. Wow.
So that was pretty wild. But yeah, this thing's great. It's in tune, plays awesome. I spent thousands of hours figuring out Randy Rhoads and Van Halen on this guitar.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, that, and then I don't know, like when I got my first electric guitar, which was a Univox, a Les Paul copy, cherry burst with, and it had the double creams because my guy was Ace Frehley.
Yeah.
So I had that guitar for a year before I could scrounge enough money together to buy an amp. So I plugged for a year, and I figured out. Actually, I figured out how to run it into a boom box and use that as an amp, and my little cheesy stereo in my room, and and I had that awesome sounding distortion. So,
That's great.
yeah. So did you get the amp, as because you were saying that's where I spent all my hours? Did you get the amp right away? Were you able to plug that in right away? And
Sort of. My grandfather was super handy. He would build cabinets and all kinds of stuff. And he built, I had this little amp and it had 2 speakers in it. And I don't even know the name of it, but it was terrible. It was a really bad amp. But I had asked for an Ibanez pedal that had 3 pedals in it. It had a tube screamer, a compression, and a chorus, I'm pretty sure. I asked for that for Christmas and a wah-wah pedal. And I think I got all of that stuff for Christmas. And my grandfather made a pedal board and put those speakers in the pedal board. So, and it folded up like a gun case. It was amazing.
That's cool, man.
I still have the case, but all the guts are gone. And I played through that, and that was like my amp. And everywhere I went, I was able to just hear myself as a monitor. And then eventually I split it. And I think my first real practice amp was a PV Bandit. Remember those?
I had a PV Backstage.
What was it? You cut out.
I had a PV Backstage.
Oh, okay.
Right, and it had built-in distortion that sounded like crap. I didn't know any better. Just put everything on 10 and play.
Yep.
Yeah. The Bandit would have been a step up from what I had.
Okay.
Yeah. The Bandits, the Bandits, are not like, there's one particular model, I believe it's got like the red stripe or something that's pretty good for a solid state amp. I don't know.
I didn't have the red stripe, I know for sure. It was early 80s, if not 1980 at this point. So it was
Yeah. When the hell? Okay, you know what? We're not. I think we're pretty close in age. I got my first guitar. I would have been like 13 or 14, and then I got the amp like 2 years later when I was like 15 or something like that. Yeah, but yeah, and I was teaching myself how to play. Actually, it's funny because I just put up a video of how to play a Sex Pistols song, "God Save the Queen."
I saw that. It was like the other day, right?
Yeah. I put up a lot, and it's funny because that record, I learned how to play every song on it because it's all bar chords.
Right.
So, back then, like you were saying earlier, there's no YouTube, there's nothing, right? So I'm literally watching like TV shows and looking at guys' hands. And then I see them with this shape that they're moving around. And then it's like, I found the shape. Oh, there's a bar chord. Hey, look, it works everywhere.
It's gold.
I can move it around. And it's funny because like 30, 40 years later, I'm still playing that same bar chord. Just moving it around.
Whatever works, man. I mean, that's it. It's all right.
But that's cool. That's cool, man. We had a question. I'm just trying to dig it up here. Remember I said to you before we went on it, somebody's going to ask you about the guitar behind you.
That one?
The Randy Rhoads? Yeah.
Yep.
So so let's you want to talk we're going to get to that guitar anyway. I think let's go through the maybe the evolution a little bit, and we'll eventually get to that guitar.
Okay.
2019 Chaos Music says he had a Univox guitar. Oh, cool.
Nice.
I still have my Univox. Amp I didn't have. I just had the guitar. Is that Animal on the drums in the background?
Oh yeah. So every Monday night I do a show on my channel, a live performance show from 9-ish, as long as there's no technical difficulties,
Right.
till whenever, 10, 10:30. And there's a couple of songs that have drum solos. So instead of just standing there and letting the drums go, I put Animal up to the camera and shake him like a maniac. And people love it. And it's actually hilarious because, there's a delay. So, like, I'll do this for the drum part, I'll put it down. And as I'm starting to play again, I'm looking on my iPad, seeing the Animal thing, and I just start laughing because it's hilarious.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's
Yeah.
Animal. He hangs with me every Monday.
Cool. That's cool. All right, so we're up to the chord guitar,
Yeah,
and you're back with Vic. When did the first band start happening? When does that start happening?
that was grammar school. And there's a story with that too. So I would practice either in my room or in my garage. And a couple of my friends would hear me. And they'd come over and they're like, "Man, you're good. You should come play with us." And I was like, "You're out of your mind. Like, I'm not going to play with you guys." Now they were older than me, so if I was in grammar school, they were in high school.
Right.
So I was like, that whole thing, like when you're that young, and then the high school kids are like, held up on a
They're like
pedestal.
they're like adults.
Yeah, and they had like the best drummer in like the town playing, and great bass player. There was no way I was going. I'm like, I am not going. So one day they show up and they're hanging out, and my one friend's like, "Oh, I'm thirsty. Let's go get a drink." So we go in my house and I grab some Pepsi or something. Meanwhile, the other two guys take my gear out of my garage and they bring it to the rehearsal space. And they're like, "Oh, if you want to see your stuff again, you better show up for practice tonight."
Holy shit.
So I was like, "Oh no." So I went, and we wound up having a band for quite a while. It was fun. But I was scared to death, I mean, and of course, the high school kids, the band, it wasn't a practice. There were chicks hanging out, and like everybody hanging. It was more like a party with us practicing at it
Right.
in the drummer's house. So I was terrified. And we would do just the typical stuff, Van Halen, You Really Got Me, and Crazy Train, and Iron Man, all of those like classic tunes.
And are you like the only guitar player, or is there another guy?
Yeah, I was the only guy.
Wow, if you were kicking that stuff out.
Yeah,
That's impressive, man.
thanks. Yeah, I found another guy who was local. His name was Ross, and he taught me more of the hard rock stuff. So, of course, I couldn't, my parents couldn't afford both Vic and Ross, and I actually wanted to do more rock anyway, so it wasn't a big deal leaving Vic, even though I probably should have stuck with him for the education side of things.
Mhm.
But Ross would come to my house, and I still keep in touch with Ross. Actually, Ross, probably 10, 15 years ago at this point, walked into a store where I was teaching, and he's like, "Vince," and I'm like, "Oh my God, Ross." He goes, "Why don't you come and jam with my band on Saturday? We just rent a room and hang out and just play, but we do like a bunch of tunes and just jam over the whole tune, like melody wise."
Mhm.
So I was like, "Wow, that sounds really fun." So I went down, and that's what we were doing. Him and I would trade off back and forth leads. But Ross showed me so much stuff, like all the classic Van Halen, "You Really Got Me," and that kind of stuff. And then I remembered one night I wanted to learn SATO by Ozzy.
Mhm.
And he was just like, "Man, this is a tough tune for you." And I was like, "Yeah, but I really want to learn it." So he's like, "Well, maybe we'll do it next week." So I was like, "All right." So he leaves, and I was just totally impatient. And I just sat with like the record and put it down. and started figuring it out. And then I'm like, I'm gonna ruin this thing, so I recorded it onto my boombox.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
I sat there for the whole week and figured out SATO, the whole song.
Right.
He came over and I played it for him. He's like, "Who showed you that? Do you have another teacher?" I'm like, "No, dude. That's all I did all week was sit there with the tape deck and figure this out."
Yeah.
And he was really impressed, and you know, he paid me lots of compliments and said, "Man, I don't know. I don't even know if I could teach you anymore after that. Like that was really a tough tune, and you figured it out on your own." So I said, "Yeah, but I'm sure there's plenty of stuff I could learn from you." So we didn't end lessons at that point, but maybe within the next year, I moved on to another guy named Ross,
Mm.
and he was really into like Ingve and Randy Rhoads and Ozzy and
Right.
old stuff and classic rock. So Kansas, all of that stuff. So I remember going to him, and the first thing he showed me was Heart of the Sunrise by Yes.
Okay.
He's like, "This is a good exercise. You should do this." I'm like, "That's impossible. I can't play that." So, but he would show it to me. And then there was another one by Al Di Meola, and I can't remember the name of it. Land of the Midnight Sun, I
Mm.
think is the name of the song. And he showed me that. And it was this impossible thing to play to speed. But those things really, because they were chromatic riffs,
Mm.
kind of fell into some of the jazz stuff that I was learning from Vic, but in a rock way.
Right.
So these guys all brought out different things that really stuck with me for my whole career of learning. It's endless, you know. It's like I could learn something new tomorrow and sit with it for hours. It's just great, you know. Guitar
Yeah.
is one of those things. So
Well, it's obviously, you had the dedication and the drive to want to learn more, right? I mean, that whole when you talk the whole needle thing, for me it was I remember trying to learn how to play the riff to Black Dog from Led Zeppelin. And I was like slowing the record down and then slowing it down. And then of course then when you learn it in a different position.
right,
Trying to okay, well, what key do they actually play this in? Then you got to try to see a video or something, or put up the speed and find that one note. Oh, it's an A. Okay, you kind of go from there.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. My grandfather, again, him being handy, he had this. You know, they had the old school record players that were like the size of computer desks, you know, with the giant speakers, and it was the
Right,
old
right, right.
one.
The console.
Yeah, the Zenith consoles.
Yeah, yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
So I guess it broke, or they just moved it, or whatever. And you know, being the handy guy that he is, he took all the guts out because those things ran on tubes. So
Right.
he saved the tubes for, you know, if the TV broke, he would fix it with tubes or whatever needed because he was that kind of guy.
Mm.
And I was figuring stuff out, and he goes, "You know, if you put a 33 on the 70 whatever it is, this 78, or you put the speed, you change the speed on the record player, it'll slow it down." I was like, "That's genius." Okay. So he pulled the record player out of what was left of the thing. He put a headphone jack on it so I could plug it into my amp. And then I was sitting there trying to figure out tunes, putting the needle down and having it slow. And it sounded like my guitar tuned to baritone because it drops everything in octave.
Right, right, right.
So I was figuring out like Hot for Teacher on my own, down an octave and slow. It sounded
Right,
like, you know, horrendous.
right, right,
I'm
right.
sure my parents and my neighbors were just in pain forever for
Drove
like
everybody nuts.
many
Yeah,
years while I was struggling with this stuff.
yeah.
Trains your ear, you know.
Well, that's one thing that I think. Okay, we didn't have all the the YouTubes and all that, but if you wanted to learn how to play a song, you got to learn it by ear. It's just the way it is, right? Like, back even when like in the 90s, late 80s, early 90s, when I was out playing out a lot, it's like, okay, here's the songs that we're gonna learn for this week, and I would get a cassette.
Yep.
And I'd pop the cassette in, and then I try, and then sometimes like like there was one I was in like a wedding band, right? And you're Italian, and my background is Portuguese, so I used to play in the wedding bands, right?
Sure.
And it's like, oh, here's a real traditional piece, whatever, and it'd be like 5 guitars on it, and then I'd sit there by ear and learn all the parts, and then mesh them together and come up with my own arrangement.
That worked, right?
I could play all the key parts, and then show the keyboard player what to back me up with, and that's all ear. Like, I'm talking zero theory. Like, I don't know shit, right? I'm just like picking it up. Okay. And like, I'm basically going off of intervals, really. Cause for a while you start to kind of, oh yeah, that'll be, you start to kind of pick up on that, but it's so invaluable, that ability to even this day, and here's the funny thing, even with, YouTube and all that, like I'm in a cover band now, and it's like, okay, we're going to do this song. And then they're like, okay, and then so to save me time, I'm like, I'm not going to try and learn it by ear. I'm just going to find somebody, and I'll listen to them. And I'm like, okay, he's playing it wrong. Then I go to another guy. Okay, he's got A and B right, but he's playing C wrong. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, you're still using your ear, to fill in the missing pieces, and then what kills me, here's what kills me. Like, I am not, I'm not a professional musician. I'm just a guy. And you got some of these guys that come on and like they're professionals, and I'm listening to them play a song, and it's like I'm sitting there hitting I'm like, can't you hear that's wrong?
Right.
Can't you hear that you're playing that wrong? It's like for me, when I hear a bum note, it's like somebody kicks me in the head. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah, same way.
You know what I mean? It's like, can't you hear that you're playing that wrong, and you're teaching all these people how to play it wrong?
And they're getting billions of hits and making a couple grand. Yeah, from the ad revenue. So check this out. Yesterday, because I teach full time, that's my job. I teach full time. Yesterday, one of my students, and I've warned him plenty of times. I'm like, dude, don't go to YouTube and try and learn this stuff, because chances are you're going to find more people wrong than right. And by the time you find the guy that did it right, you could have just asked me. So, so he's all proud yesterday. He's like, dude, I figured out, I can't remember what it was. Oh, I can't believe I can't remember. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So he said, I figured out this song, and he played it for me. And I started, having the smirk of like, and he goes, it's wrong, isn't it? I said, yeah. He goes, damn it. Why do I waste my time? He goes, you warned me about YouTube. He's like, so how do you play it right? And I played it for him. And he's like, I can hear that that's right.
Yeah.
And I said, good, because now you have reached a new level.
That's right.
If you can hear that now my way is different, whether it's right or wrong, we don't care right now, but you heard that it was different. If you can hear that it's different and know that my way is right, because you can then say, that sounds exactly like the track I was trying to figure out, not almost like the track. Now we're good, because now you can hear that. So that to me is a big step for a lot of my students, when they can start hearing things and tell me like, oh, this part I know I got, the rest of it's wrong. And I'm like, okay, well, that's a start. Let's fix it and make it right,
Well, if you're unless you're playing classical music and you got sheet music in front of you, you're really depending on your ear, man. At the end of the day, like, you're playing in a rock band, or, hey, play a solo.
Right.
Okay. Like, you're not, there's nothing written down. You're going by your ear and feel and temp, all this shit's going through your head at the same time. You can't, like, 100 years ago, I used to teach guitar to like high school kids, right? And at the time, it was like Nirvana. Everybody wanted to learn how to play Nirvana. Right? It was all Nirvana. Yeah, it was all detuning and and then and then I had this one kid who had amazing dexterity. Like, he could his fingers could fly, but it was all gibberish, right? and I would say, okay, I'm going to play this progression. Here's a scale that works over it, and then I get him to play the progression, and I'm like, making music,
Yeah.
right? Okay, and okay, now I'm going to play the progression, and and he could not for the life of him put a melody together, nothing. There's certain things I believe that I call them raw materials. One is you got to have a sense of time, and one is you got to have an ear.
Yeah.
Or you're gonna have how are you gonna play music? You know what I mean? You just can't.
Right. So something you just reminded me of. So in that cover band years ago with the guys who kidnapped my gear, we wound up playing a pool party, and so we're at this pool party, and now mind you, I'm still either in 8th grade. Yeah, definitely not in high school yet. So they're all in high school, and all their friends are in high school. And we played this girl's house that had a pool, and all her friends were there, and they're all dancing in bikinis. And here we are playing, and my friend looks at me and he goes, "We got to keep them dancing." So I'm like, "Okay." And we're playing Billy Idol Rebel Yell. I'll never forget it. So we're playing Rebel Yell, and they're all dancing, and he's like, "Do the solo again." He goes, "Keep soloing." That's what he said. He said, "Keep soloing." And I'm like, keep soloing? Like, I don't know how to improvise. So I just started the solo over from the beginning.
Right.
Right. And he looks at me and he's like, okay, he didn't care as long as they were dancing. Then he comes over to me again. He goes, keep going. I'm like, are you serious? Like, I don't know how to improvise. I'm just going to do the same solo again. So I played because that's all I knew. I knew how to learn stuff and play it. And, I'm sure it wasn't accurate, but it was close.
Right.
I was in 8th grade, so how great could it have been? It was good. So that next day, I called my guitar teacher. I'm like, I need to learn how to improvise.
Yeah.
This happened over the weekend, and I felt stupid playing the same guitar solo over and over,
Right.
So, and that was like one of the things we would do is he was set up in a studio in his house. So, and back then there was like tape, reel-to-reel tape. So there was no like looping stuff, but he had a drum machine. And I was like, this thing is like amazing. I need to get one. So that was the next thing on my list for my parents to spend way too much money on was the Roland
Oh yeah, back then.
TR 808 or something like that. It was like $500 for 3 beats and a fill,
Yeah. I just want to thank Metalhead Hippie for the super chat. Much appreciated, man. And we got some questions.
Sure.
Fruitcake Tony saying it's all about feel and ear for most of us. Theory is just validation that we learn later in our musical lives. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I agree, but I'll tell you this. After I learned theory and I was sitting there relearning some of the stuff that I learned from like Randy Rhoads and Van Halen. Not so much Van Halen, but definitely the Randy Rhoads stuff. And maybe like more of the Boston and Kansas stuff because of the harmonies.
Mm-hmm.
What was like this mystery of I need to play it a certain way and know like that was it and that was the only position I could play it in. Then after I learned theory and learned like, oh, well, that's like the harmonic minor scale.
Mm-hmm.
Or that's the Mixolydian mode. Or, okay, he went from this position to that position, and the way he connected it was by going from Dorian to Phrygian. And I was like, oh, I wish I learned this stuff with Vic because I would have been so much further along figuring things out. So in one aspect, yes, the ear and the feel is probably 210% important, and equally important would definitely be theory because it speeds things up.
Yeah, I mean, as somebody who is, okay, I shouldn't say I don't know any theory because I do. I know enough to be dangerous, right? But not enough
You can't help it though. You learn it as you go.
Yeah. So, what I'll do is I'll look at a tune that we're doing. Like a lot of, okay, let me take a step back. Some of the songs that we do, if the solo is like an integral part of the song, I'll try to play the solo.
Right.
Or if not the entire solo, I'll get all the hooks and then I'll do my own little linkage pieces, right?
Sure.
If the solo doesn't matter, if it's just one of those go nuts, then I look at okay, what are look at the progression and it's like what are my options, right? Okay, it's in this key. Okay, I can get away with this scale, that scale, whatever. And then you know what I like, I used to be the guy that would blow through everything in like a minor pentatonic, but that guy, I left that guy back years ago. Now I try to mix it up, right?
Right.
I'll play full diatonic scales. I'll try to mix major and minor. I just try to make it a little bit interesting, all right? And I like to play a little bit outside too. So that's good. But that's like what I would call like a fundamental basic knowledge of theory, right? You
And
know,
that's good.
right? Like, and I don't know like note names, like I know shapes, right? Like if you say, okay, this, this is in G, I can I can play the diatonic scales anywhere on the neck in G just because I know all the shape, any key, it doesn't matter what it is.
Right.
And then the modes are just it's the same thing.
Branch off of them. Yep.
Right, but when you start talking about harmonic minors and this and that, now I'm left in the dust. I don't even. It's funny because I do a lot of these tracks where actually I did one a while back, and he's actually in here. Jimmy Guitar Meets Science. He's like, I did this track, and he comments. He goes, "Oh, that was a great use of the melodic minor," and I'm like, or harmonic minor. I'm like, I did that. I had no, because I'm just going by ear. It's like because after years and years, you kind of know that note's going to work, that note's going to work, and you know where your triads are and all that kind of stuff. And so, anyway, but but to know the theory, I totally agree with you. It's like, man, instead of having like one set of tools, you got 3, 4, 5 sets of tools. It just gives you way more options.
Yeah, and honestly, once you start really learning everything, they're all blending. They all blend together.
Yeah.
So just even like simple pentatonic, if you're over in the typical box, and you're hanging out there. So now you could take different shapes that are right there.
Yeah.
That are still in the key of C or A minor, relative minor, right? And you got your A minor, you got you can go D minor, B diminished, G major, C, E, F, all the way up, and then you could start making like little riffs out of those and incorporate them with your pentatonic scales. Whatever. I'm just saying, like, if you know that stuff and you know the areas,
right,
then you can start kind of buzzing around with a little more melodic patterns than flashy stuff.
Yeah, exactly. It's fun. The Guitar Meets Science. He goes, laugh out loud. Your ears knew where to go. So.
I must say, yeah. Another thing that I was definitely fortunate to be involved with is my grandmother had the piano was the centerpiece, because back then there was no internet, and of course when they were growing up, the piano was the center point of the home.
Right.
So she would play by ear. She would sing. My grandfather would sing. Friends that came over, she would start playing, and it turned into a thing,
Mm-hmm.
But I remember at a very young age, she would play a couple notes. She'd say, look over there. And she'd play the notes. And then she'd say, play those back. So now I'd sit there and plink on the piano.
Until you found it.
Until I found it. And I go, okay, that was the first one. And then I'd go, that was the second one. And then she's like, okay, now try and do it with less,
right,
choices. Like try and go to it right away. So she'd play a couple other ones. Of course, I failed miserably for a long time. But eventually, it was to the point where I would hear it and go, okay, that's over here. And I'd nail it like within the first or second try.
Right.
That totally has spilled over to guitar because
that's a great ear training exercise. And the hardest part is getting the first note, because once you get the first note, you can hear the intervals after that. So.
Right. And I had no clue that that's what it was called, intervals. I was just playing notes with grandma.
Yeah, yeah. Here's a question for you. This is from Fruitcake Tony. Oh, before I forget, let me mention this. So this is my
Fruitcake Tony shirt.
my Fruitcake Tony shirt. I want to thank Fruitcake Tony for sending me this shirt. I won a guitar pick, a Steve Vai pick, and Tony was nice enough to send me this shirt. If you aren't subscribed to Fruitcake Tony, check out his channel. He does a show every Saturday at 4 p.m. So go support Fruitcake Tony. And Fruitcake, thanks a lot, buddy. Appreciate it. And his question for Vince is, what is your main axe, and are you endorsed by anybody?
Okay. So my main axe is the Parker Fly.
Yeah, got to get into that.
And
yeah,
I am endorsed by them.
Oh,
unfortunately, they're just not building guitars anymore because of poor business decisions on everybody's. Just anyway, don't even want to get into that part, but it's a shame because these guitars are unbelievable. They play amazing. They sound great. They're super versatile.
Yeah.
So that's why I like them, because just quickly I could go through.
How did you before you how did you get into, like, is that a guitar that you just liked and then the relationship developed after that? Or Parker guitars, it's not exactly, oh, it's a Gibson, it's a Fender, like, you know what I mean? That's a little bit off the beaten path. So why Parker?
Okay, so like I said, I was a fan of Gibson, growing up because of Randy Rhoads. And then my second guitar was a Kramer Pacer Deluxe.
Right.
Which was basically the Eddie Van Halen thing. But I really liked Jakey Lee. So I got it in black and white. So it looked more like the Charvel.
Right.
And those were like my main guitars for years. So I was using the black and white Kramer Pacer Deluxe and my Cort Les Paul. Then eventually I got a real Les Paul Black Beauty custom, beautiful guitar, which I still have. And
yeah, you played that on Monday, did you not?
That one was the Lou Palo custom.
Oh, okay.
And then I got this guy here, the N4.
Nuno.
The Nuno guitar. That thing weighs a ton, equally heavy as a Les Paul. And
really?
Yeah, it's a heavy guitar, very heavy guitar.
Wouldn't expect that.
Yeah, solid, great sound, and I used those guitars for years. And one day I went into a friend's store because the store that I managed and taught at did not have Marshall. So I ordered a Marshall 2x12. I wanted a small compact amp that I can use with my preamp and power amp setup that I was building in a 4-space. I wanted a compact rig that I can take to New York and do gigs. So I got the cabinet, and while I'm waiting for him, this Parker Fly was sitting on a stand. This is my first Parker Fly. It's a 95. So I picked it up and almost dropped it because it's so light. I was like, whoa. So I sat down and played this, and by the time he got the amp out of the truck, because it literally was delivered like as I was sitting there, I said, put that on the credit card too. So that came home with the Marshall, and I wanted to get the guitars into the store where I worked, but we weren't at that point advanced or had the clientele that would be buying that kind of stuff. So we waited, and I actually wound up calling Parker with questions about that guitar. And oddly enough, not realizing that the guy I was talking to was Ken Parker, because he basically ran the company with like 3 other guys.
Oh, wow.
So he was fielding the customer service calls. So I don't know how it happened, but one time over the phone, he said something, and I'm like, "Are you actually Ken?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm Ken." And I was like, "Wow, great." So we had a rapport. And then I don't know which came first, but I do know that this is a funny story. So I'm in IKEA, and if you've ever been to IKEA, the shopping carts, all four wheels spin, so the carts are very weird to push, but they're fun because if you whip them really hard, they spin around in place. I see another guy doing the same thing, and I was like, "That's Ken Parker." And my ex-wife, she goes, "You think you know everybody? That's not Ken Parker." I'm like, "That's Ken Parker." So I went over to him. I'm like, "Ken, is that you?" He's like, "Yeah." I said, "Vince from the phone calls." He's like, "Oh my God, great." So he goes, "How would you like to play at the NAMM show this year and demo our guitars?"
Wow.
Sure.
Well, yeah.
Okay. So that's what wound up happening. They gave me a guitar as payment, which was awesome. And then they added me to their roster. That's how I got endorsed in IKEA.
Cool.
So,
Small world, man.
yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. So people are saying great story. There was one other Truth Guitar Method, thanks for the show. Got to get back to work. Well, thanks for being here. Much appreciated.
Thanks for hanging.
Going back. If anyone's got any questions, please tag me in the chat. Janice is saying, just want to mention that I met Vince on a video of Mr. Spanky and the hip thrusters.
Holy cow. Right.
Running down a dream.
That's right. I remember that. That was like a couple of years ago or longer at this point.
Chris K is asking, what bands do you cover? So, okay, let's talk about, so what bands are you playing with right now?
All right. So
nobody, but I mean, pretending this was not happening, what would you?
Right. Well, thankfully for the past 2 years, every Monday I go live on Facebook, and I also now go live on my YouTube channel. So, so every Monday at 9 p.m., provided there's no technical weirdness, I'm always on eventually by quarter after the latest usually. And if it's really something messed up, I'll post like, hey, we're not going on till 10 o'clock or something. But thankfully that hasn't happened in like almost a year. But on my show, what I do is I like to cover songs that I feel have really good melodies, and I do them as instrumentals.
Oh,
because I don't sing.
Right.
So I'll do Purple Haze by Jimi Hendrix, and I'll play the vocal line on the guitar. I do Purple Rain. Of course, now you ask me what do I do, and I go blank. But
everybody does that.
It's like the typical thing, right? So,
I don't.
So thanks to iTunes, I could tell you what I played on Monday.
You know the funny thing about it is, you go blank, but then you walk into the rehearsal room and they call them out, and you know how to play every single one of them
without a problem.
I remember their names.
Exactly. So as far as covers go, I'll play The Rumble by Link Ray, Miserlou by Dick Dale, Purple Rain, Fire. What else do I have? Black Dog. I haven't done that one in a while. I should probably do that on Monday. I love
break out the Les Paul for that one.
Yeah, Communication Breakdown.
Mm-hmm.
Here's one I haven't done in a while, and this always turns heads. I do Careless Whisper.
Oh, hey.
But they're strong melodies, so like I'll play this stuff, and that's really what I listen for in a song if I'm going to cover it as an instrumental. Of course, then I do instrumental tunes like Europa,
Santana,
Santana, Freeway Jam, Jeff Beck. What else? Instrumental wise, I'll do Hocus Pocus by Focus. So it's kind of all over the map. And then I do my originals, which are also all instrumental.
Right.
And that's my Monday thing. With my cover band before COVID, we did everything from Billy Joel to Bee Gees to AC/DC. And it was cool. It was really cool. It's up on my YouTube channel. The drummer, one rendition of the band, the singer would play bass. The bass player would get behind the drums, and the drummer would come out, and we would do a set of AC/DC. And he sounds very much like Bon Scott.
One.
So just really good. So we do all of that, like Highway to Hell, Shook Me All Night Long, Back in Black. I think we did like once, but I love that one. I'm trying to get him to do it. Maybe next year when we're allowed to play again,
Yeah.
we can cover those. But it was cool because we would do all different stuff. We'd have a keyboard player who played rhythm guitar, and he would do like the Billy Joel and the Beatles stuff. And then the lead singer would do, we did Creed, we would do Van Halen, we would do Ozzy, Judas Priest. And then, like I said, everybody would switch except me. I'd play guitar the whole night, and the drummer would come up and sing the AC/DC stuff. So it was a very versatile band, and we played a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it sounds cool. This question's come up a couple of times, so let's hit it now. So this is Lars Guitars. He's dying to know about that polka dot V behind you.
Okay, so of course, with my whole Randy Rhoads influence, I really wanted to get a polka dot V. And before the internet, I had no idea where to get it. You'd read that it was Carlos who built them, and it was with Charvel, but now he's doing his own thing. So I had no way of getting in touch with anybody. And then eBay was invented, and the internet came out. And one day, and this was early on in eBay, I really took a chance with this thing. I found this on eBay. Got to be careful here. So I found this on eBay, and he had it up for quite a bit of money.
So who made that guitar?
I have no idea. It's not signed by Carlos, so I don't know if it's one of his.
Okay, that's what he's asking, because he's got one as well.
But it's, I checked out the pictures, and the dots are almost exactly in the right spot.
Wow, it looks great. Double cream DiMarzios.
Yep. And on Randy's, his plates were white.
Wow.
So I was like, all right, I got to have this guitar. So then I didn't know how eBay worked, and the auction ended. So I couldn't bid on it, but I emailed him and I said, hey, I see the auction ended, but did you sell it? And he goes, no. So I said, well, would you be willing to take whatever I offered him?
Mm-hmm.
And this was like in 2000, literally whatever year this all started, eBay and PayPal and all of that stuff.
I have no idea.
It was early 2000 something, 4 or 5 tops. So he goes, sure. It's like, okay. So I said, how do we do it? And he goes, well, send me the money and I'll mail you the guitar. So all my friends were like, you're crazy. You're never going to see the guitar.
Yeah.
3 days. He promised 3 days. It showed up in my house. And I was like, good grief, this thing plays unbelievably. So it plays amazing. It sounds great. And then I was doing a guitar clinic for Parker. And one of the guys in the audience said, hey, man, the way you play reminds me some stuff of like Van Halen and Randy Rhoads. And I'm like, well, you nailed that, because that's like the 2 big influences.
Right.
So he goes, I make leather straps. Or actually, I said, yeah, I'm a big fan of Randy Rhoads. I just got this polka dot guitar. And he's like, really? He goes, I make straps. He goes, I'll make you a Randy Rhoads strap to match your guitar.
Nice.
And he just sent it to me. He didn't charge me. His name's Paul. He's still on. I see him every now and then somewhere on Facebook. But yeah, so that's this guitar. It sounds great. It plays amazing, like I said. I know things get a little weird with the compression, so
yeah,
I'm going to shut this off here. And if you don't talk, we won't get the weird delay, but I'll just play something real quick, and then I'll shut it off. Let's see. Here we go. Audio. All right. So. So, a little something there.
Yeah, it sounds great.
Thanks.
Here's a question for you for Vince. This is from Jimmy Guitar Meets Science. How was it playing with Vi?
It
Oh,
was.
you gotta tell me that story. I didn't know you played with Vi.
I played with Vi. It was incredible. It's over on my YouTube channel. So for everybody watching, go subscribe.
Actually,
Shameless plug.
I should mention I have a link to Vince's channel below. Okay, it's in the description. So if you want to jump over and have a look and give him a sub, that'd
That
be
would be
fantastic.
awesome. Actually, I just saw someone, Paul Liu, just subscribed, I think. Thank you.
Oh, there you go.
That's
Yep.
awesome. Thank you. Yeah, so that's pretty much how I got this
Chris K.
Randy Rhodes V.
Chris K is asking, is that an exact replica? And I think you addressed that. It's pretty close.
Yeah, it's pretty dead on. But let me hang this back up, and
Yeah.
then we'll talk about the Steve Vai episode, which was amazing. And
Thanks, Brian S. Just threw your link up in the chat. Thanks, Brian.
oh, awesome! Thank you. So Steve Vai. So I met Steve many times over the years, and the band. And I always wanted to be able to like play with him. It's always a far reach for that kind of thing. But he started doing these camps where you can go and do the whole week. You get to be around all of these famous. Well, not all. It's usually just a handful. But this past 2019 Vi Academy, it turned out that some of my friends were actually the teachers. So my good friend Larry Mitchell, Andy Timmons, who I've met and hung out with many times. He's a great guy and a ridiculous player.
He is a great player.
If you don't know who he is, look him up. My God, you will just want to either practice or burn your guitar.
Yeah, I just picked up some Andy Timmons stuff from Spotify. The guy's a beast.
Yeah. So what happened with this whole Vi Academy thing is my wife was like, you got to go to this. And actually, some of my students' parents were like, you got to go to this. We sent our kid and it was amazing. And so some of my students went to previous ones. So I was like, oh, maybe I'll go this year. And my wife's like, you're going. So I said, well, then you better write the date down so we don't forget and put it on the refrigerator. So she writes the date down, puts it on the refrigerator. What winds up happening is just everything that can just happen financially. And I'm like, no, I'm not going. It's too much money. Not going to waste the money. I need this. I need a new computer or whatever. Life. Yeah. All right. So like the week before or 2 weeks before, they start introducing new teachers who are going to be there or new other people that are going to be at the academy doing seminars. So like I said, one was Andy Timmons, one was Larry Mitchell. Then my friend Matt Pacone over at Fractal, he was doing a class there. Then they added Devin Townsend, who is just a monster guitar player, singer, and producer, the whole bit. So I called and I said, hey, if anybody cancels, give me a call. Here's my number. Let me know if you guys do that sort of thing. Because it was sold out.
Right.
I get a phone call back and they're like, somebody canceled. But I forget what happened. I either didn't call them back right away and that got taken.
Oh, shit.
And then like the day before, something crazy, like it was that close. They call again. Hi, this is Dreamcatcher. We got an opening. I was like, okay. So my wife's like, you're going. That's it. You got to go. It's like, so I went and it was awesome. I got to hang out with a bunch of friends that I haven't seen in a long time, all in one spot. And then he would do this thing every night. He would play with whoever wanted to play.
Right.
Well, this particular camp happened to be the most he ever had. And he literally played from 8 o'clock at night with no break till 1 or 2 a.m. until he got through everybody.
Holy shit.
I think they said by the end of the week he played with 250 people. So my little section, you had the choice of either going up and playing a Steve Vai song, letting Steve Vai pick something, or you pick something and tell them the chords. So the particular piece that you hear is actually an original of mine. And I said, these are the chords, and I'm just going to start, and don't worry about the riff. So I started the song with the riff, the way it goes. And those guys are so fine-tuned to each other that it was like I was just part of the band. It was ridiculous. Like, we didn't rehearse that. They never heard it before.
Didn't matter.
Jeremy just comes in like perfect. I mean, it was great. It was a really good time, and Vi was amazing. And to be right next to him and trade licks is like a whole different level of playing.
Oh yeah, that's a once in a lifetime right there, man.
And my wife and my mom chipped in for me to go.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So if it wasn't for them doing it, I wouldn't have went, because I was like, yeah, it's just too expensive. And I kept talking myself out of it. I'm not going to do it, you know. But they were like, yeah, you're going. So
That's
thanks,
awesome.
Mom. She's probably watching. And thanks, Wendy. I know Wendy's watching. So, yeah.
Well, that's great, man. So we're a little over an hour. Usually I go an hour and then I give the warning. So we're like almost 8 minutes over. If you're cool, if you want to hang out for a little bit longer, we can go a little bit longer. I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I'm good. If you're not bored of me, I'm cool.
No. We actually, there's a lot of stuff that we haven't talked about yet. And if anyone's got any questions, please throw them in the chat, and I will forward them to Vince.
Sure.
Well, so one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on is like okay. Again, take this from an outside perspective. You have a dream job because you do music all 24 hours, 7 days a week. Like, you've made a career out of it.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, most of us who love it could make a career out of it one way, shape, or the other. So we had to go and get real jobs, but we always kept it as a passion. Like myself as an example, and kind of do it on the side. But you've managed to take what you love and make it your job. And again, that old saying, if you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life, right?
Basically, yeah. So I guess you're wondering how I did it.
How do you, in this day and age, man, like, how do you do, I mean, like, you're a regular working guy, but your job is music.
Yeah.
And most of the, when you hear about somebody made a career of music, it's like, oh, they must, they sold like 1 million records and they're on tour all over the world, but you're just a regular guy, but you still manage to carve out a career in music like that. I mean, I got to tip my hat, man. That's pretty damn cool.
Thanks. It's all about determination and the hustle. Like, and that almost sounds obnoxious to say as an answer. It's the determination and the hustle. You got to hustle, But honestly, I have a few different streams of income. So right out of first of all, when I was learning that, I have to work to buy stuff because my parents are tired of buying me stuff. It's expensive, this guitar hobby thing, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
So I don't know, whatever year it was, when I was 16 and allowed to work, I got a job, and it wasn't a pretty job. I was working at a meat market with a good friend of mine. He was actually the singer in one of those cover bands from when I was a kid. He got me the job. He's like, well, dude, if you need money, it's around the block. You can walk there. But the catch is you got to be there at 4 a.m.
Oh.
All the shipments have to be out by 7 to be at the restaurants by 8, who open up at 9. Ugh, yeah, great job. So I was working in a meat market, packing up patties of hamburgers and all kinds of stuff. I did that for one summer, and I was like, this is not happening. Not digging this kind of work. This is work. Then the next thing, I wound up working with my dad. He was a mechanical engineer, an electrical engineer, and I don't have it right here, but he designed the machines that painted the labels of like Budweiser and Pepsi, like not even the labels. They painted the cans, like the etching on the Pepsi can. There were only like 2 or 3 of these machines in the world, and one of which was in Japan. I did that for a summer or 2. That wasn't so bad. But the shop would be like 160 degrees in the summer because it was literally no air conditioning. These machines were running all day. It was brutal. So I went from below zero meat marketplace to 120 degrees. I'm like, this all sucks. None of it is good, you know?
Yeah.
So I wasn't driving yet. But then when I got my license, and it all kind of revolves around this one cover band, I started dating this girl, and she had asked me to do like a presentation of guitar at her Cub Scouts troop. So I was like, okay, I don't know what I'm going to do for these kids. She's like, just come and play. They'll love it. Okay. So I went with a little portable amp, and I wailed out on guitar a bit, and that was that. And I went home. And she calls me up later on. She's like, 2 kids want lessons.
Perfect.
And I'm like, lessons? I don't know I can't teach anybody. I don't know what to do. And this was her whole thing. And I wish I really listened to this on many aspects of life. She goes, well, you know more than they do.
That's right.
So it's like, wow, okay.
Yeah.
I know more than they do. And that was my career. Started right there. I went house to house. And then other people started finding out I was teaching. Then I wound up working at a local music store as a salesman. And I would sit and just play in between customers. And sometimes customers would walk in. And then eventually they'd buy something and say, hey, do you teach? And I'm like, yeah. And that was it. So I would go to their houses. So I was going house to house. I had about 25 people in no time.
Wow.
I was making more than my friends that had real jobs.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I'm certainly not going back to packing meat, and I'm certainly not going back to 120 degrees cutting steel, you know? So I was like, this is great. I'm making money. I'm having a good time. And there's nothing better than when somebody progresses and then you see that progression.
Mm-hmm.
That's worth every minute of doing it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I started teaching. And then that became a thing. I wound up working at like 4 different music stores, almost all at the same time. One I was doing sales, another one I was teaching, and then these other 2. And I wound up meeting other players and other, musicians or people who own studios. And this one guy in particular said, man, your tone is so good. I want you to play on some of these singer-songwriter tapes. Okay, tapes back then. So I'm like, all right, what do I do? What do you want? He goes, well, bring your rig to my home studio. And I'm laughing because what happens next, and we'll record you. It's just easy stuff for you. It's going to be easy. I'm like, okay. Well, the hardest part of going to his place was, I don't know if you've ever been to Weehawken, New Jersey, but it's kind of like the Village of New York.
Mm.
He had a 5th floor apartment with no elevator. So I get there and I'm like, dude, where's the elevator? He's, oh no, we got to bring it all upstairs. I was like, oh my God. So that was the hardest part of the job, was bringing my Laney half stack, my pedal board, and 2 guitars up 5 flights of stairs.
5 flights. Wow.
And I don't know what year that was. It was probably 1986 or 7. That's probably when maybe 87, 88. No matter what I did, I could do chick, 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 or wail out a guitar solo. It was $100.
Wow.
So I was making good money back then.
Shit, yeah. $100 back then?
Didn't matter. Like, didn't matter
Oh,
what I played.
that's big money.
And then from that, the next step was these people that I played on their stuff were like, wow, this is great. Who the hell are we going to get to play this live? Like, our guitar player can't play this live. So he would call me up and go, hey, do you want to play for Laura? Do you want to play for Abby? Do you want to play for, I still keep in touch with Abby, actually. Do you want to play for April? Sure. Lorraine needs you? Okay. So I would do these like singer-songwriter showcases in New York where it would be a half-hour gig.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd get paid to just go up and play a half hour of these tunes that I did on their demos, and it was awesome. So now I'm teaching, I'm doing recording, and I'm playing live.
Right.
And that was the combination that worked. And I've just been doing it ever since.
That's
and
awesome.
music store, being in a music store.
And music store, yeah.
So if anybody, I mean, I know COVID sucks and everything's all closed and it's very shoddy right now, but I must say that back then, music stores were like the internet. That was where you met everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So without my music store jobs, I would probably not have met the people that I still have relationships with to this day.
Yeah, and that's where the ads would go up. If you were looking for somebody, that's where they all have that bulletin board right by the door.
Yep.
You know, looking for a singer, guitar, whatever it is, you know. Yeah.
You know, so that's how I started out, and that's how I kept it going. Was anytime one of those went dry, I'd fill up something else. So, and honestly, the something else always was teaching. Teaching was always first. That was like what I considered myself more than a musician, was a teacher.
Yeah, it's more stable of everything, right? Yeah.
And I always had between 30 and 50 students a week. We actually did the math, and since I don't even remember what year, because I couldn't drive, so I was biking to people's houses with my guitar on my back to give guitar lessons. It was ridiculous, right? So, but it worked. I would go and teach somebody something and leave with $10. You know, I'm 16. It's like, it was better than working at the meat market. I was making like $3 an hour there. That was horrible.
Right.
I was getting 10 a half hour to do something I really enjoyed, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's always been the thing, is I've always felt that the teaching thing has been a solid gig, and it's very enjoyable, especially when you have students that really want to learn and they're hungry to learn. And some don't want to learn, and that's a challenge too, because you got to be equally enthusiastic with the ones that are just like, I didn't practice, and you know, and they're watching about it.
They're just repeating yourself from the week before, yeah.
Right. And that's tough. You know, there's been some.
I know.
But yeah, I hope that answered the question. So I guess really now, though, with COVID, how does that all work now? So basically, once Skype came out, I started actually giving lessons on Skype years ago.
Yeah.
I had some connections with people that I met in Sweden. So I was giving lessons to people in Sweden and Denmark. So what's great about that is they're 6 hours ahead. So I could start at noon. That's 6 p.m. for them. So I could literally teach from noon till 3 people over there, and then start here at 3 till 9. So, you know, that's what I still do now. So I have people in different spots, and with COVID, 100% of my lesson business has now been shifted to online, Zoom or Skype.
Wow. All right. I haven't seen any activity in the chat, which tells me there's something funky's going on, or
Uh-oh.
But it's still got 45 people in here.
Cool.
So I would want to take this time to make my usual speech, which is I want to thank everyone for tuning in. You guys rock. If you're interested in, speaking of support, if you're interested in supporting the Hack channel, down below in the description, I have a link to the Guitar Hack store where I have t-shirts and mugs and hoodies and all that good stuff. Also, there's a PayPal down there too, if you'd be so inclined. If you don't follow me on Facebook, I've got a Guitar Hack Facebook page, a Guitar Hack group as well, and I have an Instagram. That's all down there as well. So that would all be much appreciated. Um, yeah. And Vince, any last things you want to mention to the folks? I have your link below, by the way. Vince's link is down there as well.
Cool. No, not really. I have to get myself the T-shirt and the swag stuff and the mugs. That's my next thing. I have I don't know where it went, but I do have like some mugs that I have as tests, to check out how they looked. But now I got to get the store up and running.
Yeah. Yeah.
But other than that, thanks for having me. It's always fun doing these kinds of things. And
oh, it's great having you on, man. This was fun. Just hang on for a second. Yeah. So, folks, what do I got coming up? I might be doing something on the weekend. I'm not sure yet, but I will have some videos coming up on the weekend. I've got another which is which video. See if you can tell the difference between a 339 and a Les Paul in the mix. So that's coming up on the weekend. That's the hard one. That's tough. Yeah. So anyways, that's coming up this weekend. So have a go at that. Thanks everybody for tuning in. And we will see you next week.
Cool. And thanks for, I see some new subscribers popped on my channel. My
Perfect.
count is going up here. So thanks to whoever has subscribed from Hack's show here. You guys are great. Thanks.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great week. Cheers.